Jennifer White transforms operational chaos into competitive advantage for the growing companies trapped by their own success. After witnessing countless business hemorrhages profit through inefficient processes and failed transformation, she found the MJW Group to solve what others overlooked. 70% of the improvements fail because they ignore the human element. Her company focuses on integrating people, processes, data, and technology as one ecosystem. When companies are ready to stop accepting, "That's how we always done it," they call Jennifer. Jennifer, welcome.
All right.
You've mentioned your consulting firm specializes in manufacturing and supply chain transformation. Can you tell us more about the types of challenges your clients typically face in these areas?
Absolutely. Most of the clients we work with are dealing with some combination of complex processes, legacy systems, and there's pressure for them to adopt modernized systems faster than ever. In manufacturing and supply chain, it often shows up as fragmented processes or lack of having a process. It could be disconnected data or plant or the warehouse is operating on systems that were never designed for the number of disruption or volatility that we're seeing today. So I usually tell people like the technology that they're utilizing or the processes, think about, after World War II, when the industrialization started happening, right? It's been 60 years now, and nothing's really shifted until recently. So there's a lot of growing pains that the organizations are going through to try to manage all of the volatility that they're experiencing now.
Since manufacturing is your one of your leading verticals that you provide services to,
Mm-hmm.
looking at today's DNA, a lot of 20, 30-year-olds are all attracted by the internet, all attracted by making money on IG or Facebook or in some kind of tech startup. Manufacturing is probably majority of them, it's the last option, right? And then they don't even probably even considering those type of jobs. So is that safe to say a lot of these C-level executives or individuals that are running teams and these machines and technologies that you're seeing are 40 plus years of age and 50 plus years of age? Yeah.
Thanks. You're telling my age because I'm probably one of the last engineers to be trained on the subject. But yes, you are correct. There are labor shortages and skill set competency shortages when it comes to manufacturing or supply chain because, like you said, our world, as I mentioned, the change has happened the last probably 25 years now where a lot of things are
Yeah,
digitized. And
absolutely.
especially when students are going to college now, or they may not even be going to college, right? You can pick up any app or learn how to code or low code type of applications now. And if you develop it well enough, you can sell that and make money from that. So you're right. That's why the shortages are existing. Current administration is trying to bring manufacturing back to the US because we solely did depend a lot on our globalization that we took advantage of, which was the right thing to do. But at the same time, I don't think we understood, 20 plus years later, what was going to be the impact of that.
Interesting. How is that impacting the company's ROI that you're working with?
With change management, is what we like to call it. You have to figure out, like you said, how to adopt quickly. We look at 4 areas: people, processes, data, and technology, right? We've seen so many shifts happen with, how people work nowadays. We have hybrid working, right? Where before everybody used to go clock in somewhere, right? We don't work like that anymore. We can work any time of the day. And it's, for the most part, manufacturing still runs 24/7. So yeah, people are still working, third shift, the
Like,
graveyard shift as well. And with those different avenues, what the organizations are doing are adopting to that change. So they're creating the robotics, right? They're creating the automation. They're infusing AI with the processes to make things better, faster, cheaper because they realize people may not be the sole way of getting things done, like a physical human. So where do I have opportunities to automate, to integrate technology more to make the process a little more simpler or less complex. People bring in a lot of complexity to processes, right? Because of ergonomic issues, because of training, everyone doesn't start at the same spot. So, you may outgrow a particular person may outgrow because of their skill set and their competencies than the person they're sitting next to. So they're looking for ways to, make things, more efficient, complete things a little bit faster, and that is going on with a lot of manufacturing. There's a lot of digitization happening, especially with AI as well. And I'm down for it. Like, I love to see this shift that's happened. Because, like I said, it's been long time coming. Think about Tesla with the cars. We had almost 100 years of Model T, just about. And then
Right,
now,
right.
yeah, the innovation had to come to evolve and move us along. So one thing I know for sure is that change is constant and it will always be constant.
And it's change. We're talking about change in 2026 is so much faster than change in
It is.
2000, right? What are some of the common pitfalls you see companies encounter when going through the major organizational changes? And how do you help them?
Yes.
Yeah, and how do you help them to navigate that?
One of the biggest things around people that we see is assuming that people resist change because they don't want it. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. They may resist change because they don't understand it, or because the execution feels overwhelming or, chaotic to them. So a lot of times, think about when we're in the midst of changing, right? I remember my dad got us our first computer. It was around 95, 1996. We got our first PC, the family PC, right? Everybody has their own tablet and laptop and things now, but we had one family PC with the dial-up internet, right? And we had to learn how to use that technology. It was very chaotic. There was a lot of noise on, getting families integrated into that new world. And we started realizing how fast we could get information and retrieve it, right? Versus the encyclopedias that he bought us. No, we would refer to that or go to the library, right? So that was a shift that happened, right? Since there was a shift that happened with .com, right? We had to learn how to go to these websites now to get information versus going to yellow pages or white pages, right? So there's always going to be, folks resisting that change. And I really think it's due because they don't understand it. I don't think it's because they're afraid of it, but it's not being explained well for them to understand what's the benefit of them utilizing it. So I think now that things are happening a lot faster, companies like software vendors, right, and people who develop apps, you have to explain the benefit of someone utilizing your apps because there's so many apps in one space now, right? Look at all the just this tool you're hosting the podcast on, right?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
many other tools exist like that? How many, CRMs do we have today? How many ERPs do we have today? So being able to differentiate like why, a consumer should choose you, that's the resistance that I think organizations have to get over.
What do you do when you come in into a company and you help them to understand their value, but you also communicate on their level? How do you do that?
Yeah, so we come in and we help companies slow down to speed up, right? So I mentioned we work with the alignment around people, process, the data, and the technology. There's so much data, like sometimes companies don't understand what they should be looking at to make certain decisions.
Or just
It's
don't know?
primarily been that's just how we've always done it, right? The status quo. So now that we have all this information that is just readily available, how do I utilize it? So I think when you start bringing people into the why conversations, they can handle a lot more of the what. You know what I mean? So our goal is to reduce that disruption and build confidence at every level of the organization, even if it's, an associate doing incoming inspection into a manufacturing facility of, they may have raw materials that go put into another process to make a finished good. Like, why are they doing that? And why is it important for them to inspect the best that they can, right? They may have a procedure that shows exactly, this item, how do you inspect that item, right? Do you look for the quality, the reliability of that item? Do you look for, the color, if the color was correct on the item? So think about products that you receive every day and you can tell, hey, that wasn't made right. Or, you may order something and your wife or girlfriend orders something exactly the same, but when you put it side by side, there's a disruption
That's right.
somewhere on that item, right? So that's why processes are so important in the manufacturing world because it impacts the end customer more faster now than it did before. And you would file a complaint with that company, right? To say, hey, this is not what I ordered. And then they'll say, I'm sorry, we'll ship you a new one
New
because
one.
they don't want you to feel that what you purchased is not what you expected.
I'm just curious, do you have a data, what percentage of the products that are manufactured and sold actually get returned and companies manufacturing have to actually just kind of like, yep, I'm just going to go and replace it without even asking questions? Do you have that data?
That data, but I can tell you when I was in that day to day of being in manufacturing, it happens a lot. There's a lot of we call it return to vendor that happens. It's an RTV number that gets assigned to return a shipment or an item. There's all kind of things that can happen in transit, right? When I was a supply chain planner, I had ants take over a full truckload of material that I was shipping to a warehouse, right? So obviously we can't use that. You would have to inspect every single box to make sure there was no ants in there. And then you've tampered with everything. So it was no longer usable product, but it happens a lot. And you have to build in companies start building in those costs to dispose of,
Wow,
certain goods, right? And it impacts their bottom line, but it does happen a lot.
that's wild. You work with a lot of middle market to large enterprise clients. Okay. What are some of the unique needs or consideration for companies of that size versus smaller businesses?
Yeah, so middle market and enterprise companies, they operate with a level of scale and complexity that smaller businesses just don't have to manage, right? So they may have multiple sites of their operation. They have a global supply chain. Think about a food manufacturer like Kraft Foods, right? They make all these different, Kraft makes cheese, they make perishable snack items, right? They may manufacture in the US, Mexico, Canada, right? They may manufacture in the Asian countries somewhere too. And when you have global supply chains, of course, now we're seeing more complication when it comes to shipping rates and transportation costs, as well as tariffs. Also, small businesses, they don't have to deal with an increase of stakeholders, right? Small business owner, or say you're a 100-person manufacturing operation, you may have 2 to 3 stakeholders that would be over that operation, right? Or they're responsible for the profit and loss of the company versus a global, more enterprise level company, right? You may have, 8 business units and 8 presidents and one COO and one CEO and one CFO. So the complexity of the stakeholders that you have to manage and report to, and you get a little involved with having a matrix organization and managing expectations. Smaller businesses aren't dealing with that. And I think it's a good thing though, because smaller businesses can adopt things a little more
For
faster because
sure.
they don't have
Less
all the
layers.
bureaucracy
Yeah, yeah.
and the
Less
red
layers
tape.
for sure. Yeah, out of, as I'm listening to you and what your company provides and why you do what you do, is that safe to say that change your management is usually where you spend majority of your time because of the culture shift that company needs to take place to start adopting new technology?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, before you change, just think of it from a consumer standpoint. Before you buy a new car or you purchase a new house, right? You're going to do research to understand, the area that you want to move to, or if it's a new car, there's certain features that you may want that your old car didn't have, or vice versa. So you want to do some research around, affordability, the quality, the reliability, right? When I was growing up, we used to pick on Ford and we used to say fix or repair daily. Now, do
Wow.
you think Ford still has that reputation? Maybe, maybe not. We don't hear too
I don't
much
know.
about.
But that's funny though. Fix and repair daily. I feel like it's every American car, but I'm not gonna pick on them, right? You mentioned using AI, right? How else are you leveraging technology to drive efficiency, and how are you seeing manufacturing companies are leveraging an AI in this world, in today's world?
Yeah, so internally here at the MJW group, we do utilize it for lead gen, as you said, proposal drafting, anything that has like deep research where my team doesn't have to spend a lot of time researching and they can find the answers that they need quicker. That's what we're starting to really utilize it for. I would say repeatable administrative type of work as well. So if there's things that you're doing constantly, like every single day or at least once a month. And it's like clockwork, that can be automated for sure. And you can utilize AI to figure out ways to make that process a lot more efficient. So for our clients, we're utilizing technology to speed up how we process map, how we conduct data analyses, and do our operational diagnostics. So we'll do a gap analysis, for a retailer or a manufacturer, right? And we come in and we dig into all this data that they have. We're interviewing people involved in the process. We're trying to understand, how are things working today versus how people perceive things are working.
My
It's
gosh,
always a difference.
I'm sure you can see a big gap there, right? Probably. Yep.
Exactly. And so we start to document those things because actually two people could sit right next to each other and have the same job, but they're doing it differently.
Wow.
And a lot of times they're just not communicating effectively. So we're finding ways to, as I mentioned, weave the automation to speed that up when it comes to helping them understand, diagnostically what's happening to be able to prescribe a faster fix or resolution for it.
Is that safe to say it's been a lot better how manufacturing companies actually starting to implement AI tools and just technology to efficiently increase the ROI?
Say in certain areas. So like the automotive industry, they've done very well with robots and making sure, they can turn widgets faster. I would say if you have a lot more assembly or automation as far as conveyor belts go in the process, yes. But there are still organizations they have not been as fast to adopt new processes, of course, that exist in every industry. And I think, again, I don't think they're resisting it for that reason. It could just be a wait and see how things pan out. And plus, there's an investment, right, to updating and modernizing your technology or infusing AI and automation into your processes. It does require investment in your people with training and obviously investment in the tools, right? Some of the softwares we call it the total cost of ownership. So some of your software licensing you have to pay for each individual person to be able to access. And that's why you do see some companies, they're developing their own AI tools. One for data privacy and cybersecurity for sure, to protect their own interests, but also they have more control over that AI
Huh.
themselves.
How is AI right now becoming a concern for some of the employees? Are you hearing anything within the manufacturing world from the employees?
Yes, some of the conferences we've gone to in the last 2 years, I would say, have brought up that concern
Concern?
with employees, having access to the AI and that AI really learning that employee. So if an employee leaves the organization, what do you do with all that information they've collected on Jennifer White? I'm a director of operations at this company. What do they do with that information after the fact? Because that AI has learned so much about me and how I think, how I make decisions, the value that I've brought to that organization. It's kind of like it's developed its own IP around me, but I'm
That's
no longer
wild.
at that company.
That's
So
wild.
how do you deal with that?
For the C-level executives at the manufacturing companies to improve the efficiencies, to improve the culture in their manufacturing plans of being excited to come and contribute, not worrying about the AI overtaking their jobs. What would you say? What would you communicate to them?
Say AI's been here. It's it's nothing new. Again, with change is constant. So figure out ways to embrace it.
Yeah.
Involve your team, involve your folks. They may have some great ideas on how you all can utilize it to make things better for everyone in the organization, or bring in experts that can help you make that right decision. But definitely embrace it. Don't, run away from it, because the intent is to help with the ease of life, as with all technological shifts. That's the whole point of why, we have technology. We went from, cavemen to farmers to manufacturers. Now we're in this digitization age where we're trying to infuse it all together now. So it's just a normal progression of evolution too. That's why I say just embrace it as much as you can.
What are some of the biggest trends or changes you're foreseeing in the manufacturing and supply chain space that companies need to be prepared for?
Yeah, definitely digitization. We talked about that, and data visibility. You can't operate blind anymore. So end to end visibility is becoming a requirement, not a luxury. So let me give an example. In supply chain, especially when I was in the day to day of it, I had a vessel sink in the ocean coming from China. And every day, the leaders of the organization of supply chain would ask me, Jennifer, where's your product? When are we going to get some more in? I was like, you realize the vessel sink, right? And it was like that wasn't a good enough answer, because they didn't have visibility to see that I had more product coming or more product was going to be arriving soon. They just assumed nothing was happening. Right. So I had to go back and talk with the suppliers to get them to manufacture more product, to get it on the ship as fast as possible, or see if we wanted to pay for the air freight to get it here quicker than was necessary on the ship, right? A ship would take like around 12 weeks, sometimes 9 to 12 weeks. So could I get it in, next week, 7 days if we air freighted it? So having that visibility now, that's why there's so much technology now to be able to help organizations make decisions faster. Another thing is automation and AI driven operations. So we do have smart factories that have been built that are 100% automated. That's been around for a while. We have intelligent planning systems now that are moving from experimental to mainstream. So an example of that would be we call it PM, your preventative maintenance
Kind
that
of
you may need
maintenance.
to do on machines. Can the machine tell a human that it needs to be looked at or it needs to be diagnosed, right? You're seeing that a lot more, those tools coming in and controls coming into place. And then we have the workforce evolution, I would say, is another thing that is coming around, because again, the skills have to adopt a little more faster with the new roles that we're in. And companies are going to have to reskill their employees, their workforce constantly, right? Now, companies are looking for ways to teach people how to utilize the AI, or how can they utilize AI to add value to the work that they're doing every day. So those are three huge shifts that are happening because of AI.
I sincerely appreciate you for taking time away from your busy schedule and sharing some of the knowledge that you're seeing on a day-to-day operation basis by working with a lot of manufacturing companies. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.